About this matchup with the Minnesota Vikings headed to Metlife to take on the New York Giants. I'm your host, Authentic. Literally just got off Bleacher Report talking about the same concept, and I said, man, let me just go tap in with what's going on over there on YouTube, and let's talk about this Minnesota Vikings matchup one time, man. Big shout out to the gang, man. Appreciate all of y'all. Bright and early, pulling up, rocking out with your boy during maybe rush hour. You might be on your way back from work, driving to the crib. I don't know what it is, man, but shout out to you if you're listening in the car, if you're listening at the crib, if you're listening on the phone. Big shout out to all of y'all, man, for pulling up, rocking out with your boy. You know what it is. We're going to be talking about this Minnesota Vikings matchup. And speaking of matchups, I kind of want to start the stream off on a bit of a hot start here one time. I want to know which matchup y'all are looking forward to most in this game versus the Minnesota Vikings here. There's a ton of big-time matchups here. We got Malik Neighbors going up against that new, revamped Minnesota Vikings secondary. We got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison going against the New York Giants youthful secondary that was definitely looking like a flat tire on 95 before we went out there and got Adoree Jackson. So big shout out to Joe Schoen for making that move. Very necessary move. But definitely a lot of matchups here. You got our defensive line going against their offensive line. Their offensive line played really well last season, too. You got two tight ends that are going to play in this game that really have no experience really in the NFL like that. The Minnesota Vikings are going to have a backup in their game with T.J. Hockenson out. And we got Theo Johnson probably going to be filling in for the likes of Darren Waller unless we see Daniel Bellinger out there. But definitely wanted to come over here, tap in with y'all, talk about this matchup a little bit. Tomorrow, we're going to have a beard here. We're going to be going over all the games in the NFC East. You can officially say that Season 6 is kicked off. Shout out to the homie Stan one time. Texted me this morning talking about how hype he was to see us get this Season 6 kicked off. But nonetheless, definitely wanted to come here and talk to y'all about this matchup. I kind of want to look at it from a defensive standpoint here. I know like a lot of the obvious topics are going to be about Daniel Jones and what he can do going into this game, a make or break type of season for Daniel Jones, what we're going to do to supplement for the lack of a running game without Saquon Barkley and Devin Singletary taking his position and whatnot. I want to talk about this Vikings defense a little bit, but let me tap in with the chat real quick, see what y'all talking, and then we'll get pushing into a couple of topics here. Big shout out to Max Webster one time in the building, pulling up bright and early. Was talking in the Twitter DMs with him about some fantasy matchups. I like that very fan-forward type of trade you did to acquire Malik Neighbors on your fantasy football team. That's fire. Shout out No Mets, No Nets, No Jets one time in the building. I see 59 Ways to Groove is here. What's going on, fam? J-Mo is in the building, man. Hope all is well with you. Jarrell is here one time. We got Kenny G. We got Bergs in the building. We got real people in the building, a bunch of real people in the building, man. Shout out to all of y'all. We got the homie Michael Knight in the building one time. And my homie Javi been pulling up a lot, man. Shout out to the Boricua one time in the building. And I see Omega Supreme just pulled up. All right, so let's talk about it, man. We got a big game here. Vikings coming to MetLife. I told everybody this on Bleacher Report, and I think this is a good one for y'all to check out as well. Check out Phil Simms' latest podcast on Sims Complete. They brought Fran Tarkenton on the show. 84 years old, man. That dude is functioning extremely great. They had some good concepts, good old school New York Giants history talk, and they also talked about this matchup between Daniel Jones and the New York Giants and Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. So I definitely recommend y'all check that out. Kickoff for this game is at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. FanDuel got us as the dogs in this one at home. Got the Vikings favored by 1.5. Giants beat the Vikings in the last matchup in the wild card, 31-24. Before that wild card win, the Giants had lost 4 in a row to the Minnesota Vikings, so good to snap that streak. The Giants also have lost 8 of the last 11 regular season matchups versus the Minnesota Vikings, but we have owned them in the playoffs, winning 3 of the last 4, or of the only 4 matchups. Now, I do want to talk about this a little bit and bring a couple of little nuggets, some stats to y'all attention here during this stream, some stuff I talked about on Bleacher Report. The Vikings team last year, they did only win 7 games, but they started off extremely poorly and they ended extremely poorly. They started off with a 3-game losing streak. They ended the year with a 4-game losing streak. And all those 4 games that they lost at the end of the season, they allowed 27 or more points in every one of those games. Some definitely some juggernaut type of offenses there with the Bengals, the Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, and the Detroit Lions one more time. But the middle of their season, they had a lot going well for them. They had a 5-game winning streak, weeks 6 through 10. Some of the best quarterback play that they had throughout the entire season. They brought in Joshua Dobbs, 3 of these games were with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was playing MVP-like football last season. And interesting that the Minnesota Vikings decided to take some of that money they were spending on Kirk Cousins and delegate it throughout their roster and go with a cheaper quarterback option, bringing in Sam Darnold at just $10 million a year. Reminds me a lot of the Ryan Fitzpatrick contract that the Washington Commanders had when they brought him in, and that really didn't work out as well. He ended up getting injured, I want to say, like first game, second game. So as a Minnesota Vikings fan out there and whatnot, you're probably hoping that the Vikings can find a way to win games behind Sam Darnold. But they do have a very, very, very tough schedule this year. And last year didn't finish that well, 7-10 under Kevin O'Connell, their head coach. They brought in Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator last year, and he really flipped the script. So I definitely want to talk about things from a defensive standpoint here. Definitely want to bring some injuries to your attention here if you're not familiar with what's going on in the Giants locker room today at practice. A lot of these guys were limited, 4 of them to be particular. Dane Belton limited in practice with a back injury, Drew Lock with the abdomen, linebacker Micah McFadden with the groin, and punt returner Gunnar Olszewski also dealing with the groin injury as well. So I think the most important of those guys is Micah McFadden, our starting interior linebacker. So don't know how they're going to supplement that. Deontay Johnson was looking really good in the preseason and looking really good, in training camp. He's dealing with an ankle injury as well. So we're not sure if it's going to be Beavers. Not too sure who it's going to be at that other inside linebacker. So we'll see how that goes. Big shout out to Independent Outsider one time with the $1.99 super chat one time, starting the day off proper here. Says Giants Vikings score under 42 is my prediction. Oh man, wait till we get to the prediction. That I'm right there with you. I've got my score prediction at 41. So I think this is going to be a close game. I don't want to let the cat out the bag too soon. We're going to talk about a couple of reasonings why I see it that way. But shout out to Independent Outsider, man, supporting the channel. Definitely appreciate you, my fam. I see David just pulled up in the building. Simeo, Eric K. James Williams is in the building one time. What's going on, fam? Big shout out to you and Tim from Online Big Blue. And Simeon Toko says, wasn't Beavers cut? I think he was cut. Might have been brought back for the practice squad. I don't know what they're going to do at inside linebacker. You got this guy, KJ Cloyd, out there, who actually was on the Minnesota Vikings roster for a little bit as well. You're just hoping that Micah McFadden can be healthy and going into this game, because we're going to need him. I think that a big part of this game plan is going to be stopping the run first and then trying to limit some of the big plays. So let's get into talking about this defense here. Again, man, salute to all of y'all. Appreciate y'all pulling up for this impromptu. Just threw it out there, man. Giant overreaction, getting ready to talk about the Minnesota Vikings headed to Metlife to take on our New York Giants. We in the building. Y'all know what it is. All right, so I want to talk about what to expect from this Minnesota Vikings defense. A lot of people still have that 2022 season still stuck in their mind. And y'all know, authentic, I am here to bring some honest, truthful, very critical assessment so that you can go into this game and know what to expect. Shout out to Chris Peace one time in the building. I see you, fam. So as far as this Vikings defense, the Giants now are coming into this year, had one of the worst offenses last year in the entire NFL, 30th in points per game. Giants scored just 20 or more points just one time in the first 10 games last year, y'all. Started to get on track towards the back half of the season, and we scored over 24 in 4 of our last 5 games. But one statistic, one little nugget that stands out to me about the 2023 New York Giants offense was we were 29th in average time per drive. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the New York Giants have not been sustaining their drives and going 3 and out a ton last year, especially in the first half where we completely struggled. Now, again, this is not that Vikings defense from 2022 underneath Ed Donatel. This is a very, very different defense. Now, I pray to God that Daniel Jones can go out there and put up the kind of performance he did in the playoffs against the Vikings, which was 24-35 for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, had some yards on the ground as well. But I think that this is going to be a very different, more methodical type of game plan from the New York Giants, and likely going to be a game plan that you won't see against every team this year. I think going up against the Minnesota Vikings is going to be a particular type of style of game plan. Everyone is expecting us to, open the cookie jar on this offense and let the chocolate chips and the macadamias and all those pop out of the jar, and we're going to be throwing the ball down the field the entire game. But I do think that the Giants are going to be forced to run the ball in this game a lot. Now, the Vikings come into this year, They've been running a 3-4 defense underneath Brian Flores, drastically improved from 2022 in transition into 2023. That rush defense was 17th last year. Their pass defense was 14th last year. And as far as points per game allowed, they were 14th in the NFL. Flores took that Minnesota Vikings defense from 31st overall to 16th overall in just one season in 2023. They had the 4th best defense against rushing yards per play. They had the 8th best defense as far as rushing yards allowed per game. And they led the NFL in forced fumbles. So this is a very different defense than what we saw in 2022 in both of those matchups. Shout out to Kareem Yee in the building one time. You know what it is, fam. Okay. Appreciate you pulling up. Now, I want to talk about some of the things that have transitioned on their roster, where they've lost a couple of players, where they've gained a couple of players. And I do think that this Minnesota Vikings team got better on the defensive side of the ball. And in 2023, as I just described, they were much improved, but a lot of that personnel has changed now. Obviously, they lost Danielle Hunter to the Houston Texans. I think that was in free agency. They lost linebacker Jordan Hicks to the Cleveland Browns, and they lost one of their edge rushers, DJ Wonnum, who was drafted in the 4th round in 2020. They lost him to the Carolina Panthers. But when I tell you they went out here and they addressed all those holes in their roster that were created by them, they absolutely did that. Number one, they brought in Jonathan Greenard from the Houston Texans. They're paying that guy $19 million a year. I think he's a much better scheme fit than Danielle Hunter is. More of a powerful, you reset that position from a youth standpoint as well. Danielle Hunter kind of getting up there in age as well. They also brought in Andrew Van Ginkel from the Miami Dolphins as well. Another dog under the radar, edge, outside linebacker. Dude can get after the quarterback, can do it all. You brought in linebacker Blake Cashman from the Houston Texans as well. And we saw that Houston Texans defense drastically improved under DeMeco Ryans last season. And they had a lot of good personnel over there that was going under the radar. They addressed the cornerback position in a major way, got rid of guys like Patrick Peterson, brought in Shaquille Griffin from the Panthers. They brought in Fabian Moreau from former Commanders, also played here with the New York Giants. Put, some good reps out there for the Giants in that season where he had to come in and play cornerback too, and really helped us salvage that year, I feel like. And most importantly and most notable, they brought in Stephon Gilmore from the Dallas Cowboys, who I talked about this on Bleacher Report too. When Trayvon Diggs went out, Stephon Gilmore did not miss a beat being their cornerback one. And this year, the Dallas Cowboys are dealing with some injuries as well with Deron Bland at the cornerback position. So they could have used a guy like Stephon Gilmore, but, he was out there in free agency for an extremely long time. And the Minnesota Vikings go out there and shore up their cornerback room. Now, they also already had a couple of pieces there with Byron Murphy, had 3 interceptions last year, a forced fumble. They had inside linebacker Ivan Pace Jr., who had over 100 tackles as a rookie. They got their strong safety, Harrison Smith, 12-year veteran, been balling out for a long time. And then they spent their 17th first-round draft pick on edge rusher Dallas Turner out of Alabama. And this dude's an absolute dog. You saw him in the preseason getting after the quarterback in a major way, couple of sacks. Definitely likes to bend the hips, get around that edge. He reminds me a little bit of I'd say like a fusion of a Kayvon Thibodeau meets like a Michael Parsons type of vibe. He's going to try to beat you with his speed to the outside. That's his game. But you pair him, with a guy like Jonathan Greenard, and I think that's a very good pairing on the edge, and I think that Brian Flores is going to have a lot of success. Now, that defense, I think that they're going to be much better, right? But the big issue is their schedule. Their schedule is extremely tough this year, and I think it's going to be very hard for the Minnesota Vikings to make it to the playoffs this year, not just because of the style of team that they got, but really more importantly because of that schedule. But a lot of pieces that they already had here, and you add to those pieces by bringing in a bunch of dogs, I'll say at least 3 dogs in Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Jonathan Greenard, that defense should be much better. They were already a, top half of the league type of unit last year. I expect them to maybe be even better than they were last year. But going up against tougher competition might skew those statistics just a little bit. So we're going to have to keep our eyes on it. But I'm just excited that football is here. We got a Thursday night game tomorrow, Ravens-Chiefs. There's no better way to kick off the season than AFC Championship rematch. That's going to be an amazing one. Then Friday, we got the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. Saturday, a bunch of college ball. Sunday, back at it, New York Giants. In the time slot that we all love to play in during the Daniel Jones era, 1 p.m., I think we got a good shot to win this game. Now, coverage-wise, I want to talk about a couple of things of what to expect from Brian Flores and the rest of this Vikings defense. Now, in 2023, the Vikings dropped 8 people into coverage, the most of any team in the NFL. They also sent just 3 rushers at the quarterback, more than any team in the NFL as well. And they sent 6 players more than any other team in the NFL. So they're the type of team that is all or nothing. Big pun intended towards my studio here. But they're either going to send everybody or they're going to send nobody. And they had a lot of success doing both of those. They also played more cover 2 coverage than any other team in the NFL as well. I would expect them to have a lot of pressure off the edges. And I think it's going to be a bit of an easier day for our interior offensive linemen. We didn't get to see John Runyon, in the preseason, and not that much throughout camp, a little bit banged up and whatnot. But we did see this offensive line go up against the Houston Texans first unit, and they had a lot of success. They only allowed 1 pressure, and, our quarterback was upright. And that's exactly what we want to see going up against this Minnesota Vikings defense. So when it comes to the offensive side of the ball for us, y'all know how much I talk about being decisive. Daniel Jones is going to have to be decisive in this game. Take care of that ball. Don't take unnecessary sacks. Don't press the issue. Take what's there. Don't hold on to the ball. We saw Tommy DeVito in the last preseason game get sacked like 8 times in that game, and we saw it throughout the regular season. Tommy DeVito's been a guy that just wants to hold on to the ball, and we see that Daniel Jones is not quite as, terrible at that particular part of his game as Tommy DeVito is, but we don't want to see that kind of influencing what's going on. Just because we bolstered up the offensive line, that does not mean to go out there and hold on to the ball longer. Take what's there. If the check down's there, take it. I don't want to see Daniel Jones playing hero ball. And last year, we saw his pressure to sack percentage it skyrocketed. We want to see Daniel Jones get back to his 2022 ways where his pressure to sack percentage was 17.8. In 2023, it was 31.6. He was sacked 30 times in just 6 games. And that's enough to be sacked in a whole entire season. Daniel Jones got to clean that up. The offensive line, I expect them to be able to do their part this year and clean that up. And in return, it should make Daniel Jones look like a much better quarterback than he looked in 2023. Got to continue moving these sticks, sustain these drives. And I think that's going to happen by establishing the run. Get this ball to Devin Singletary early and often. I don't care if it's 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards here or there. Try to set up the New York Giants to be in, favorable down and distance situations. I think that that's extremely important. I see Zeke is in the building. Zeke says Jones got to get the ball to Neighbors. And I do agree with that from a standpoint looking at the entire scope of the season. But I think in this game, don't force it. The Minnesota Vikings are approaching this game and looking at Malik Neighbors, and they're going to treat him like Saquon Barkley. And they're going to go, how the hell do we stop Malik Neighbors? So don't force it. If he's open, get him the ball. When the plays are designed to go to Malik Neighbors and he's there on the first read, take what's there. But just don't press the issue. That's how I'm looking at it. I think that we can get ourselves into a lot of trouble trying to force the ball down the field to Malik Neighbors and Jalen Hyatt. And we saw a bit of that going up against 2 corners that are better than what we're going to face going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Looking at the Houston Texans cornerback room led by Derek Stingley. Those are 2 dogs they got over there. One of them that we wanted, in Kamari Lassiter. So I think it's going to be a more favorable matchup, but just don't press the issue because we see what can happen when Daniel Jones does that. So now I think that it's important that Daniel Jones goes out here, rely on the running game. We got Brian Daboll coming out here calling plays. And I think Brian Daboll's going to be smart enough to know, don't come out here first possession, give me 3 passing plays. The Giants go 3 and out, similar to how they did against the Houston Texans in the preseason. And then now you're going to put yourself in an unfavorable position where maybe the Vikings come down the field, score on their first possession. And we know the New York Giants, especially the 2023 version of them, was not a good team when it came to trying to claw and come back from behind down on the scoreboard. So that's one of my most important things. Get the running game going, establish the running game, whether it's working or not. We know that in the NFL, you don't need the running game to actually be working to be able to try to run play action pass off of that. All you need is those linebackers to just step up just a little bit, create a little bit of room between the linebackers and the safeties and the secondary for Daniel Jones to be able to throw some dots and hopefully catch these guys in stride, especially players like Wan'Dale Robinson, so that he can capitalize on what he did last year, which was get a ton of yak. More than half of Wan'Dale Robinson's yards last year were yak. So let me tap in with the chat, and then we'll dive into the next topic and whatnot. I see David says, just a reminder, if we were unfathomably but this year, there are many good quarterbacks coming out this year. That's a fact, man. And for those of y'all that have been keeping up with what we've been doing on the channel, we've been doing compilations of all of these quarterbacks in college. I've been getting to as many as I possibly can in during the windows of games. I can only do one at a time. But we did Jackson Dart. We did Cam Ward. I'm extremely high on Cam Ward. I think he's a dude right now. And there are a bunch of other quarterbacks that are going to be coming out in this draft that, maybe some guys are going to rise and, be able to be a part of the cream of the crop when it comes, 2025 draft. But I'm right there with you, David. Like, the Giants, we have to draft a quarterback next year. There's no doubt about it. I see Nova Nebula's in the building. He says, I agree. I want them to go be more aggressive throwing the ball down the field, but I don't want them to just come out slinging it off rip. I want a very simple game plan with runs and short passes first. Yeah, it's important to get Daniel Jones in rhythm. You saw him go out there in that first game, 3 passes, the preseason game, I might add, 3 passes on the first drive, and the long one to Malik Neighbors was incomplete. Nonetheless, it was a good throw for Daniel Jones. And then you come back out on that second drive, pressing the issue just a little bit more. His first throw off the break in that game was almost an interception. And then on the second drive, he ends up throwing a pick six on a play that Daniel Jones should know better to not have himself in that position. So I'm right there with you, Nova Nebula. That's a great point right there. And David, I appreciate you giving me my props, my dog. Most definitely. You already know I was extremely high on Cam Ward. And that was when he was at Washington State, man. Just the arm talent, the dual threat type of vibes that Cam Ward brings to the table. I think he'd be a perfect candidate for the New York Giants to draft. We'll see how things go this year. Or, to be in line to draft a quarterback next year means the New York Giants have to be a bad team. And if I had it my way, it would not be the New York Giants being a bad team. If I have it my way, the New York Giants are going to, represent like this cap I'm rocking right now and try to make a push and get to the Super Bowl. And they've built this roster up to the point where it seems that Joe Schoen's goal is to try to make a push here. So that's exactly what they got to do. But I am hoping that they go out there and draft a quarterback next year. And if they're not in position to, as far as draft positioning goes, find a way. You guys did it in Buffalo to go out there and get Josh Allen. You can do the same thing here in New York to try to find your future quarterback, that will take on the reins and be the franchise guy. So that's how I see the Minnesota Vikings defense. There's definitely some openings here. Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors are going to see a lot less cover one. I think it's going to be a ton of middle field open, 2 safeties over the top, which in return is not going to really have the openings for the big plays down the field for Malik Neighbors. But, when you see that single high safety, Daniel, I expect you to go pre-snap, figure things out, and make the right read. You got nothing but burners on the outside right now with Malik Neighbors, Jalen Hyatt, and Darius Slayton, and we want you to take advantage of that. So if you see Brian Flores and his Vikings defense have, middle of the field closed type of situations, well, go out there and take advantage of them and get the ball down the field to Malik Neighbors. All right, let's get off into this next topic here. I want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings offense. We know about the 2 big threats over there at the wide receiver position. Let's go ahead and get to it. Now, y'all, I can't sit up here and fake the funk. Y'all know I'm a very honest, type of person when it comes to assessment. And I'm worried about this secondary. I'm very worried about this secondary going up against a fantastic wide receiver core with a big question mark at the quarterback position. Now, the Giants did bring in Adoree Jackson this week, signed him to a 1-year deal worth $1 million or $1.75 million with 0 money guaranteed, which is a perfect situation for the Giants. I think the $1.75 million up to that, I guess, is just how much he plays. But for me, I was looking at bringing in Adoree Jackson at a league vet minimum at the end of the day. And this is a good contract by Joe Schoen here. Dan Duggan says that he doesn't think that Adoree Jackson will start on Sunday, which means we're likely going to get Nick McLeod or Cordell Flott out there playing cornerback too. And we saw what Nick McLeod brought to the table in the joint practices with the New York Jets, and it wasn't good. Going up against one of the premier wide receiver ones in this league in Garrett Wilson and one of the better quarterbacks of the last 2 decades in Aaron Rodgers, they were definitely picking on Nick McLeod out there. So I don't know what kind of confidence, Brian Daboll, Shane Bowen, and company have in a guy like Nick McLeod, but I think if it was up to me, it's probably going to be McLeod out there over Cordell Flott, but I'm worried about that. You got Deonte Banks, who's supposed to be our cornerback 1 this year, and I think he's going to have to step into that position very early in just his 2nd year in the NFL, and I think he's going to be doing a lot of learning on the job this year. So I don't expect it to all be peaches and cream like 112, but I do expect Deonte Banks to take a leap this year and prove that he can at least be a 1A, 1B type of cornerback one out there. Now, like I talked about with the Giants, we got to get this running game going early and often. And I'm an old school type of dude, so I'm all about running the ball well and stopping the run. And I think to help out this secondary, the Giants are going to have to find a way to stop the run early on in this game. The Vikings brought in Aaron Jones this year from the Green Bay Packers to take over the running back reins over Alexander Mattison, who they allowed to let walk and go to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Aaron Jones did not have a great 2023 campaign. It was riddled with a bunch of injuries. He only had 656 rushing yards the entire season, did not get over 1K yards from scrimmage, and it was one of his worst years. And I think a lot of people are thinking like, yo, maybe this guy's falling off that cliff that a lot of people talk about that happens to running backs at the age of 27. Now, when Aaron Jones was 27 years old in 2022, he put up over 1,000 yards. He had 1,121 yards, and now he's 29 years old this year. So a lot of people thinking, hey, maybe he's, over the cliff just a little bit. He hasn't had more than 4 rushing touchdowns since 2020, so hasn't really been a threat as far as getting the ball in the end zone. We'll see what kind of asset he brings to the Minnesota Vikings offense. You got Kevin O'Connell over there, and I think he's going to find a way to definitely implement Aaron Jones in that offense. And I think that the lack of running last year for the Minnesota Vikings was simply because of the personnel that they had out there with Alexander Mattison taking over for Dalvin Cook, who had been their bell cow running back for a really, really long time. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the New York Giants approach stopping the run and how the Minnesota Vikings are going to approach trying to implement the running game. But I don't expect them to come out here and just be slinging the ball all around the field with Sam Darnold being in his first game as a Minnesota Viking and really hasn't had that much success outside of, a game with the San Francisco 49ers last year and a little bit of a success with the Carolina Panthers early on in about his first 4 or 5 games. Now, the two guys on the outside, they definitely present issues for the New York Giants. You got Justin Jefferson, who went over 1,000 yards last year, and he only played in 9 starts. He had that hamstring injury bothering him throughout the whole entire year. He had 5 touchdowns, and those numbers would be something that I would look at Malik Neighbors if he could get 68 receptions, 1,074 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Wow, it's beautiful. I would love that. That would be fantastic for us. Justin Jefferson's kind of used to putting up damn near double those numbers. In 2022, he had 128 receptions, and he had 1,809 yards and 8 touchdowns. I expect Justin Jefferson to come out here and have a huge year. And I hope that the New York Giants can, catch them when they're just kind of building the chemistry over there with the Minnesota Vikings and bringing in Sam Darnold at the quarterback position. You also got Jordan Addison, who, when Justin Jefferson went down with the injury, Jordan Addison stepped up in a major way, and he had a really solid rookie campaign as well. And I would take these numbers from Malik Neighbors this year, no problem. 70 receptions from Jordan Addison last year, 911 yards, and he had 10 touchdowns on the year. And a lot of people have been under the expectation that Jordan Addison is going to be suspended for this game because there was a false report that came out on the internet. Shout out to Wes Steinberg. It wasn't him this time, but it's one of Wes Steinberg's affiliates that dropped a fake story that said that Jordan Addison was going to be suspended for 6 games. And to my knowledge, that's not the case. So expect to see Jordan Addison out there. He is dealing with an ankle injury, but from what I've seen, it looks like he's going to be out there playing versus the New York Giants here at MetLife come Sunday. So definitely not the news that we wanted to hear as New York Giants fans, but you got to deal with it, and I know a lot of players that are out there, they want to see a team at their best. And this will be a really good test for the New York Giants, especially for that secondary week 1. No TJ Hockenson. Thank the football gods for that one right there, because in 2022, TJ Hockenson was having he was having field days against the New York Giants, because in both games he had double-digit receptions. He had 129 yards in the playoff matchup, and he had 109 yards in the regular season matchup and 2 touchdowns in that regular season matchup as well. So not having TJ Hockenson out there is great. Their tight end is going to be filling in for TJ Hockenson is going to be Josh Oliver. Oliver had 22 receptions last year on 28 targets, so very high catch percentage, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns. Biggest game came against the Denver Broncos, where he had 4 receptions and a touchdown and 47 yards. They have a couple of guys that are going to be filling in for some new roles at the wide receiver 3 position as well. Do not sleep on the wide receiver Jalen Naylor, who in preseason was absolutely lighting it up. And also wide receiver Tristan Jackson had a couple of touchdowns as well. one of those guys is going to step up and take on that wide receiver 3 role now that KJ Osborne left to the New England Patriots. So one of those two guys is absolutely going to step up, and they looked really good in preseason. So big shout out to them for that. I'm worried about Deonte Banks going up against Justin Jefferson. We've seen that Deonte Banks, when it comes to going up against these larger type wide receivers, has had his fair share of issues. Reminds me of the Terry McLaurin game. Justin Jefferson in the regular season was definitely eaten last year. I'm not sure if Deonte Banks was dressed for that game. I know he dealt with some injuries and whatnot, but that's definitely one of my worries. You also got, the game in the playoffs against the Minnesota Vikings where the Giants found a way to bracket Justin Jefferson, and we held him to just 7 receptions for 47 yards. 6 of those receptions came in the first half. So I think that Shane Bowen, I know he's a new coordinator trying to make a name for himself here in week 1 going against the Minnesota Vikings. I think he would be best suited taking a page out of Wink Martindale's book and kind of looking at some of that tape. And I'm sure he is looking at some of that tape from that wild card matchup against the Minnesota Vikings in 2022 and trying to steal maybe a page out of his book to find ways to bracket Justin Jefferson. But then you also got to maybe put your best corner out there against Jordan Addison. So Dan Duggan is saying that Adoree Jackson's probably not going to start in this game. And now that I'm kind of rethinking this, going over this in my mind, it might be good if a guy like Deonte Banks travels with the wide receiver 2 in Jordan Addison, and you find a way for cornerback 2 for us, maybe Nick McLeod, or if it's going to be Cordero Flott with a safety over the top, and just have that help the entire game on Justin Jefferson, and then have your best corner going up against the guy who's likely going to be in one-on-one situations, which will be Jordan Addison. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's going to be very interesting to see who gets to start at cornerback 2. I'm going to definitely be keeping my eyes on that. And as far as, offensively for the New York Giants, I'll definitely be doing a live compilation of all of Daniel Jones' throws in that game. I might do Sam Darnold, possibly, but I like doing the compilations during the game for our quarterbacks. It really gives me a really good assessment on, right after the game, being able to assess how the quarterback played. And that will be uploaded here to our YouTube page within minutes of the conclusion of the New York Giants game versus the Minnesota Vikings. So that's kind of how I see that matchup. This is my most worrisome matchup here, is the Giants secondary going up against the wide receiver core or the pass catchers of the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll see how that goes. Big shout out to all the content creators in the building, man. I see Big Dash is in the building. I see the Illa is in the building. El Jefe is in the building. My guy Giants Realist is in the building. He says got to be at least 1-1 in these first 2 games. I just said that on Bleacher Report. Definitely agree with you 1,000% on that. If you want a chance here at this season, you got to find a way to go out there and win at least one of these first 2 matchups. Weeks 3 through 7 we're going through the trenches, y'all. It's going to be a tough couple of matchups back to back to back. A couple of away games there. It reminds me of the beginning of last season. So the Giants got to find a way to win some games. Let me see who else is in. I see James Hollister's in the building. He says, I'm not going to lie, I just hope the offense looks good this weekend if they still can't score. Yeah, and I do want to see them put the ball in the end zone a few times, but this matchup's going to be tough. You're going up against 2 relatively decent corners. Stephon Gilmore leading that room. Byron Murphy in the slot is definitely going to, present some issues for guys like Wan'Dale Robinson and guys like Johnson, trying to limit what the Giants do in the middle of the field on an intermediate level. So we'll see how it goes, man. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm glad that football is here. This offseason has flown by. I don't think I'll ever go another season not doing off-season content. It just helps the season just go by. Draft came and went, and then now you enter the season, and, we can be much more knowledgeable entering the year. Helped out my fantasy draft a little bit. I think I might have went a little bit too young on some of my fantasy players, drafting a lot of these wide receivers, first round and second round guys like A.D. Mitchell, Romo Dunze. I got a couple of these guys on my team, hoping that one of them hits, and I'm going to have to stash them on the bench for as long as I can. I made the mistake last year by letting go of guys like Tank Dell before they really started to mature and really, put some product out there on the field before that injury that Tank Dell had. So we'll see how that goes. But shout out to James Hollister, man. I see a bunch of y'all pulled up, new folks in the building. My guy, 1T, is in the building, man. What's going on, fam? If you on Twitter, make sure you follow 1T. 1T could do a podcast, man. 1T, I always tell 1T, he's one of the 3 amigos. And he knows ball. He definitely knows ball, man. He could be up here talking with me right now for hours about football, and he definitely knows his stuff. And him and the Beard have something in common. They both root for Notre Dame, kind of like y'all boy. What's my guy? Why am I missing his name right now? Pat Leonard, who I just did a podcast with, man. Big shout out to Pat Leonard for having me on his show the other day, man. Great one. If you missed out on that, go back, go check that one out. Go show me some love in those comments. You know them haters being there trying to spam all the stuff. They want to see Authentic fail, right? But it's just not going to happen, man. I'm not one of them dudes, man. I'm working hard, and I'm trying to raise the bar every stream that I do. And shout out to Pat Leonard for bringing me on to his show, man, and sharing his platform with me. And if you haven't subscribed to Pat Leonard, man, go over there and do yourself a favor. He does streams every week. And after the games, literally right after, he goes live from the New York Giants facility in the locker rooms and all of that, going live for hours, answering every question in the queue from the chat. That dude is dedicated to bringing y'all the best content, and that's exactly what I'm doing. That's where we see alike. And Pat Leonard said he's going to pull up for a Giant overreaction here after the Commanders game. So, Beard, be ready for that one. I'm going to bring you on that show. I haven't brought the Beard on any Giant overreactions. It just, we were so trashed the past couple of years, and so were they, and, like, it just didn't make any sense. But we're going to have Pat Leonard on after week 2. After we go to that game, that Monday we'll be here, and Pat Leonard should be here as well. So shout out to Pat Leonard again, and shout out to all the content creators, man, keeping this community thriving and keeping the people informed. So big shout out to all of y'all, man. All right, I got one more topic. Doing good time. I wanted this video to be about 45 minutes, and I think that's where we're going to be. I thought about doing this as a pre-recorded type of vibe and not doing it with the audience, but I was like, man, I already did it on Bleacher Report. Let me pull up here and tap in with the folks on YouTube, man. So shout out to the family. Big shout out to the gang one time. Y'all know what it is, man. All right, let's get off into this last topic here, man. I definitely want to talk about the quarterback position, and not the quarterback that I'm normally talking about here on this channel, but I want to talk about Sam Darnold just a little bit here. All right, y'all. So I want to talk about the importance of generating pressure on Sam Darnold and how we are going to do that. Now, Sam Darnold is a guy that kind of went through the same situation as Geno Smith did with the New York Jets. Didn't have a lot of success over there. He didn't get his jaw broken or nothing like that, but guy who's been, kind of tossed around the league, sitting on the bench for a little while here. And I'm sure the Minnesota Viking fans are hoping that they can have a storied ending like the Seattle Seahawks had with Geno Smith. And, seeing a guy like Sam Darnold be a good bridge quarterback to make that transition to J.J. McCarthy, who will be coming off of a meniscus tear when they enter the 2025 season. So you might want to be able to keep Sam Darnold around for another year. I believe he's just on a one-year deal. But, if he plays well, I would imagine that the Vikings would keep him around for pretty cheap and then try to make that transition to J.J. McCarthy. Now, Sam Darnold was drafted 3rd overall in the 2018 draft when the New York Giants selected Saquon Barkley with their 2nd overall selection. And he's a guy that has just definitely struggled throughout the league. His story does remind me a bit of Daniel Jones, where the Jets did fail to put the right pieces around him early on in his career. And then in return, you had Sam Darnold out there seeing ghosts. And, he said that publicly, which was absolutely ridiculous. And I think people are going to hold that against him until he retires from the NFL. But his last action as a starter came with the Carolina Panthers in 2021. And dude was looking really good in his first 4 games. He had 10 total touchdowns in his first 4 games and just 3 interceptions. And then things took a turn for the worse. In his last 8 games, he had only 4 total touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He had a 5-game streak without a passing touchdown. And y'all know I like to talk about these streaks where quarterbacks don't put the ball in the end zone. Daniel Jones, 39 straight regular season games without having back-to-back performances with at least 2 passing touchdowns. And Sam Darnold had a bit of a tougher streak than that with the 5-game streak where he couldn't even throw 1 touchdown. And during that stretch, the Carolina Panthers were 1-7. Now, he got in just 1 game with the San Francisco 49ers, and it was at the end of the year against the Rams. He was 16 of 26 for 189 yards and just 1 touchdown. Pretty good game there. 0 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times, passer rating of 96.5. His QBR was not that great. I want to say it was under 55. I don't got the notes here in front of me on that one. But the Vikings offense really struggled at the quarterback position in 2023. And I thought that when they brought in a guy like Joshua Dobbs, I thought that he was going to be a guy that could stick around and possibly play that bridge quarterback type of situation for them while they drafted J.J. McCarthy, a guy that was, high on their draft boards throughout the whole entire process. But they decided to go a different direction. 4 quarterbacks did play last year for the Vikings. You had Joshua Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall, who was a rookie last year, and Kirk Cousins, who ended up tearing his Achilles. And his numbers were really incredible up to that point. I think it was 18 touchdowns and either 3 or just 5 interceptions. Kirk Cousins was playing MVP-like football before he had that injury. Now, the Vikings were very susceptible to turning the ball over last year, and they were second in the NFL in giveaways with 34 on the year. More interceptions than fumbles. They had 19 interceptions thrown and 15 fumbles. Their rushing offense was ranked 25th. A lot of that had to do with the personnel. Alexander Mattison not really getting it done, having his fair share of fumbling issues as well. I can remember a few times where he was on the goal line and coughed the ball up, put them in some tough situations. And their passing offense was ranked 17th. The Vikings were 5th in the NFL, though, in passing yards per game, and that number really stood out to me. 256.4 passing yards per game, and you were dealing with a carousel at the quarterback position with 4 different guys taking snaps. When it comes to points per game, they were ranked 22nd. They were averaging 20.2 points per game. Now, we know they lost Kirk Cousins. They brought in Sam Darnold. They lost their center, Austin Schlottman, to the New York Giants, who's dealing with an injury right now. Not a necessarily a high-profile type of player. And they also lost running back Alexander Mattison, supplemented by bringing in Aaron Jones. And I talked about wide receiver KJ Osborne going to the New England Patriots. Now, their offensive line was really good last year. And I always tell y'all, a decisive quarterback is always going to help that offensive line. And I think that Kirk Cousins did have a lot to do with that. Kirk Cousins is a guy who really plays in time, within the script, goes through his progressions, how a quarterback should. And I think he's the floor of what you want to see from a franchise quarterback in the NFL. Now, the Vikings offensive line was ranked 12th in the NFL according to PFF by the season's end. And they brought back the exact same starting unit. They got Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, Dalton Risner at left guard, who's going to start the year on IR. They'll have Blake Brandel taking, all his snaps until he gets healthy. At center, they got Garrett Bradbury. At right guard, it's Ed Ingram. And at right tackle, it's Brian O'Neill. Both of their tackles had a PFF grade over 74 on the season. Christian Darrisaw had a PFF grade of 82.4. So that goes to show you the type of caliber of play that they have at the left tackle position over there. I would say he's not quite an Andrew Thomas, but I would expect guys like Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau to have a pretty normalized type of day going up against Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. The Vikings quarterback room is definitely prone to turning the ball over. And although they were second in the NFL in giveaways, they were also 5th when it comes to turnover-worthy plays in 2023. So they left a lot out there as well, and teams didn't capitalize on taking the ball from them, which is what the New York Giants are absolutely going to have to do going up against the Vikings here on Sunday. The Giants were number 1 in the NFL last year in takeaways. They were tied with the Baltimore Ravens, who won the Triple Crown as far as defense goes. But there's a lot of turnover here, and pun intended on turnover, when we're talking about Wink Martindale going to Shane Bowen. It's a very different type of style. Wink Martindale was literally blitzing the house at these quarterbacks and relying on his cornerbacks to play a lot of man-to-man coverage. And in return, I thought the New York Giants defense was much better last year, and I'm worried about that this year with Shane Bowen going into 2024, because this defense should probably look a lot more like what we saw out of Patrick Graham in 2020 and in 2021, which was bend, don't break type of vibes. But I would much prefer if we could get after the quarterback. And if we're going to do that, I would expect it to be with Shane Bowen using a lot of fireside blitz and a lot of creeper blitz, like bringing guys from that second level, still rushing 4 at times, but possibly rushing 5 at other times as well, and maybe dropping, one of our edge rushers back into pass coverage. And I know a lot of Giants fans didn't like that last year, but when Shane Bowen sends blitz at the quarterback, that's kind of how he does it, with disguised looks, and that's just his style of play. And he likes to do a lot of cover 3, a lot of quarters on the back end of the defense, keeping everything in front of you. So when you're seeing, these little Jason Garrett stick routes and these comeback routes and these little quick hitters working up front, just understand that that's exactly what Shane Bowen is trying to do with his defense. Now, Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns coming off the edge, I think that they're going to have to find a way to get pressure on the inside. I've talked about Brian Burns and his inside spin move not being one of his more successful type of moves that he likes to use. I looked at every pass rush snap from 2023 with the Carolina Panthers, and when Brian Burns wins inside, it's strictly off just a jab step to the outside and then use his speed and strength to get to the inside and get after the quarterback. Look for a couple of those. I do think Brian Burns is going to get after Sam Darnold in this game, but I would expect a lot more of the pressure to come from the interior. And I would expect that to be from Dexter Lawrence, and like I said, from the second level. When you see some safety blitzes with maybe a guy like Dane Belton, I don't know if Tyler Nubin's going to get on the field, but if you see him out there, Andrew Phillips in the slot, I think that these guys are going to be able to send some pressure from the inside as well. So don't be surprised if you see some blitzes going right through those A gaps, or if you see some of the nickel packages where the nickel is blitzing from the outside, but then guys like Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau using inside stunts to get to the inside to be able to get some interior pressure right down the pike. That offensive line of the Minnesota Vikings is more prone to allow pressure to come right down the middle than they are from the outside. They have two solid tackles at left tackle and right tackle, so that's how I see us getting pressure on Sam Darnold in this game. Now, Darnold is pretty semi-mobile. He can move around a little bit. I'd say very similar to what Daniel Jones can do, but doesn't have the kind of straight line speed that Daniel Jones has. And Sam Darnold has never been sacked more than 35 times in a season, which is not like the greatest statistic, but it goes to show you that he's not like way up there in the 50s. You know, you've seen guys, especially mobile quarterbacks, guys like Deshaun Watson get sacked way over 40 and 45 times, 50 times in a season. Guys like Randall Cunningham, you know, Randall Cunningham was sacked like 71 times in a season. And we saw it last year with the Commanders and with, what's the kid's name? Sam Howell, who got sacked a bunch over there just holding on to the ball. And I don't think that Sam Darnold's quite the guy that's going to hold on to the ball too long, but he is a guy that can definitely, take some sacks from the interior portion of the defense, or the pressure can force Sam Darnold into making mistakes. And we saw that dating all the way back to his college years in USC, and we saw that with the Jets. Sam Darnold has been a guy that, yeah, he can make some fantastic throws. You'll see him make some tight window throws and make some really good throws, but then you'll see the mistakes. And that's been the thing that we've been seeing with Daniel Jones, is the lack of consistency. And same thing goes for a guy like Sam Darnold. Shout out to the homie District Pack one time in the building, man. Appreciate you pulling up. My guy, Mr. Torres. What's going on, fam? Hope all is well. Sent in that $4.99 super chat one time. He said, one of the hardest workers I know. Man, that's high praise right there, man. I don't even call it hard work, man. I can't even call it hard work at this point. I enjoy what I do. Wasn't even supposed to go live today, bro. And was just sitting here and I was like, that Bleacher Report stream felt a little light, felt a little fast. Let me go tap in with the homies over there at YouTube one time. But shout out to my homie Torres, man. Let's get up. Let's link. I'm shooting the Michigan State game versus University of Maryland this Saturday, bro. I'm going to need to holler at you, man. That 70 to 200 might be calling my name. I might need a little beta run one time, man. So I'm gonna hit you up and see what's good, man. But shout out to the homie PJ one time in the building, man. Appreciate you, man. Always holding us down, man. What else we got in the building before we shift here? My guy Danny Duds is in the building. He said, give Darnold 60 starts. Bet you his numbers look better than DJ. I think they would. When you look at his turnovers in comparison to his touchdowns, it's not quite where a guy like Daniel Jones is. I think Daniel Jones still has more turnovers than touchdowns in his career. Sam Darnold was like just underneath it. He had like 10 less turnovers, like 15 less turnovers than he had touchdowns. I think Sam Darnold's pretty capable, but it just be the boneheaded, mistakes. That'd be the problem with him one time. Shout out G-Men 2011, one of the best years, man, for the New York Giants. Says Sam Darnold can look good 1 minute and throw a rookie interception the next. Reminds us of anybody in particular? Yeah, absolutely does. As we used to do back in the day, I ain't gonna point no elbows, but Daniel Jones helmet over there. We'll point him at that. But shout out G-Man 2011 one time. Let me just catch up with y'all. Let me see if we got any. I see Derek Grant is in the building. He says, bless up to you, brother. My sons and I are going to be at the game at FedEx Field. Section 130, row 1. Those are great seats, bro. It's going to be a vibe. Let's go Giants. Yeah, man, if you want to pull up, we're going to be tailgating. And our tailgates don't tend to get too crazy where you can't bring kids and whatnot. There'll be a lot of food. We'll be kicking it with Chris Peace and a few other people. Not too sure which lot we're going to be in now, but stay in touch, Derek. We'll make it happen, man. I'm definitely going to be there looking for my tickets in the end zone. I sat near where you're sitting here when Chris Peace blessed us with tickets to the Commanders game versus the New England Patriots in the preseason. Real close, right around that 30-yard kind of mark right there one time. So, yeah, if you want to reach out and come kick it with us, man, be my guest, man. You already know what it is. Reem Dadas is in the building. What's going on, Reem? Hope all is well. He said, we criticized Vikings and discredited our playoff win in 2022. So are they much better now? The question mark that's surrounding the Minnesota Vikings right now being a better team is really at the quarterback position. That's a big downgrade to go from Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold. So offensively, I think that they're going to be a tick worse than they were. But the defense, I don't know if you missed some of the beginning, but the defense has definitely been upgraded, bringing in Jonathan Grenard, Van Ginkel from the Miami Dolphins. They brought in some dogs. Stephon Gilmore, Their defense should be much better. And the statistics show that even before bringing in that personnel, last year they went from 31st, where they were in 2022, to 16th overall in the NFL. So Brian Flores is definitely bringing a new approach defensively. Yeah, I criticized the win against the Minnesota Vikings because that defense was trash. A 31st ranked defense, 32nd ranked passing defense in the NFL. There were plenty of quarterbacks that aren't even good quarterbacks that had a lot of success against the Minnesota Vikings that year. I just want to scroll back to a graphic that I had up here that I pulled from some old notes back in the day. So Mac Jones in week 12 put up 382 yards against that Vikings defense. Mike White, when he was playing with the Jets, put up 369 yards versus that Minnesota Vikings defense in 2022. Jared Goff put up 330. Daniel Jones put up 334. So that goes to show you that a lot of quarterbacks outside of Jared Goff that are really either average or below average quarterbacks had a lot of success against that Minnesota Vikings secondary and that defense. It's completely revamped now. Different corners out there. You still got Harrison Smith playing strong safety, so I expect them to be much better. And I do expect it to be a relatively low-scoring game. Not an extremely low-scoring game, but I don't see this game breaching the 42 like Homie said earlier. I think it's going to be right under that. I'm going to give you a score before we get up out of here, but shout out to Reem Dadas one time in the building. Let me see if I can get to a couple more, and then we'll close this one out here. Deilla says, I do feel better about this game with Darnold starting. I worried about McCarthy under center because I thought O'Connell could build a more effective game plan with him. JJ more useful on the ground. Yeah, JJ McCarthy is an extremely athletic quarterback. He can definitely do a lot with his legs. I think he's just a little bit sharper than Sam Darnold is too. Maybe throws with a little bit more velocity. When JJ McCarthy first started to get reps at Michigan, his arm talent was suspect to me. I thought he, definitely didn't have arm strength like that. Passes down the field, kind of hanging a little bit. And then he came back, and I don't know what happened. He got that man strength, hit the weight room a little bit, and the velocity has definitely shown. And I think the quarterbacks can gain more velocity as they go along, especially when you're as young as a guy like J.J. McCarthy is. I think J.J. McCarthy is just 21 years old. So, he was still growing into that man body. And I agree with you, Deilla. I would have been a little bit more frightened going up against J.J. McCarthy in certain aspects, of the approach from the defensive side of the ball. So I'm definitely with you on that. Let's scroll here and see what we got. Shout out to Matt9054 one time in the building. Says, as long as number 8 is on the field, I feel the New York Football Giants have a fighting chance. Not a big wink guy. Most of the turnovers were versus Washington and bad teams. Yeah, you did have 6 turnovers versus Washington. But the Miami Dolphins game, they forced 3 turnovers in that game. That wasn't a bad team. And they really didn't get the turnovers clicking until about like week 5. That Miami game was when they really started, finding a way to get takeaways. So I do think it was a bit of positive and negative. I kind of agree with you on some of the stuff you're saying there about Wink Martindale, but I was a fan of his defense. I thought Kayvon Thibodeau thrived in that defense, and I thought that it made quarterbacks get rid of the ball really quickly. It's going to be really nice this year to see, a stark difference with Shane Bowen and be able to make that comparison. This defense has more talent up front, less talent in the back end in the secondary. So it is a little bit of a different unit personnel-wise, but I expect them to be good. Losing out Xavier McKinney, I thought that's really going to hurt our defense a little bit. But you did bring in Brian Burns, so we should be able to get after the quarterback a little bit faster. As far as your assessment on Daniel Jones, as long as number 8 is on the field, I feel the Giants have a fighting chance. It's kind of interesting because I kind of feel the opposite about that. I feel like with Daniel Jones on the field, we kind of know what to expect, and give us a fighting chance. Yeah, I'll say that. He is an average quarterback that can get some things done when he's playing well. The biggest knock on Daniel Jones has been consistency, being able to put together back-to-back performances or 3 consecutive performances that are really good in a row. A guy that has not, thrown for 3 touchdowns in a game since December of 2019. There's a lot going against him. I think that he has enough on his resume throughout 5 years of football to understand who he is right now as a quarterback. And to me, that's a guy that really has never shown you elite characteristics. A guy who can be a game manager and use his legs to be able to extend drives and possibly win you games. But I don't feel as confident as you do with Daniel Jones behind the center, especially after what we saw in 2023, man. But big salute to you. I don't remember seeing Matt in these streams like that. I think Matt's a new face. I'm not too sure, but welcome to the gang. If so, man, appreciate you pulling up and rocking out with us today on this Wednesday afternoon edition of the Giant Overreaction. Really just a different vibe today. Shout out to the homie one time. Oh, I got to get this ready for my guy. Tuto in the building. What's going on, my dog? All the way across the pond in Italy one time, man. Always paying respects to the New York Giants and all of them New York Giants content creators one time. Tudo says, let me get this out the way real quick and do this again. Tudo says, as an old man, I'm like losing my eyesight. Let me zoom this in a little bit. He says, salute and respects to Authentic and the Beard and all the diehard Giants fans across the pond. Drop by to collect some gold nuggets. Yeah, Authentic gonna drop them gold nuggets all day long. And Tudo says to pick up some roadmaps to glory. Yeah, man. Tomorrow, we're going to have the Beard back in the building, get the roadmaps going. A couple of topics that involve both of our teams. We're going to be breaking down all 4 games in the NFC East, talking about the Philadelphia Eagles on Friday. I ain't even going to front, man. Like, them Philadelphia Eagles kind of scaring me a little bit. Made a lot of moves in the offseason. Great draft, bringing in 2 solid corners in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean over there. They just traded for Jahan Dotson. Brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Them dudes, man. I'm looking forward to seeing Cam Jurgens take over for Jason Kelce. He's been waiting his turn. Good thing we ain't got them Eagles week 1. But we're going to be breaking down their game. We're going to be breaking down the Dallas Cowboys game as well. So make sure y'all pull up tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be doing that here on Authentic and the Beard again. Big shout out to my guy, Two-Toe, one time in the building. Let me see what else we got, man, and then we get y'all up. We're going to keep this under an hour for sure, man. Let's see. I'm just scrolling. Shout out to R0B one time in the building. I see you, fam. Tuto, his paisano. One time, y'all be eating all that pasta and all that good stuff. Shout out wifey. She is house sitting for her family. Came through, dropped me off some pasta the other day. I was eating some baked ziti, eating good, man. You know what I'm saying? Definitely grubbing out. Shout out to Rob one time in the building. And shout out to the gang. Y'all know what it is, man. So just a few more things before I get y'all up out of here. I do want to talk about a quote that I saw on the Phil Sims Complete podcast, speaking on Sam Darnold. I thought this was a really, really good take and a great comment about Kevin O'Connell as the OC mind over there, but also the head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. Phil Sims said, if you're a quarterback in the NFL and Kevin O'Connell is your head coach, you're going to play well. He can design the plays, he can call them right, and he's a great quarterback coach. There's no doubt about it. Again, I recommend all of y'all go and check out Sims Complete. They had a podcast today with Fran Tarkenton, 18 years in the NFL, spent a good middle portion of his career with the New York Giants, played for the expansion Minnesota Vikings, and reminded me that the Dallas Cowboys are an expansion team. So when it comes to that America's team shit, y'all need to cut that out. There's no way you can be an expansion team and be America's team. We got to get back to the OG franchises like the New York Giants, all right? The Detroit Lions, teams like that, right? Put the Cowboys to the side. No shade to all my Cowboys fans that be pulling up, rocking out with us. But love that quote. And I think that that's one where we can expect Sam Darnold to go out here and play a pretty decent game. And I'm expecting the New York Giants to try to, be able to rattle him a little bit, get that pressure going to the inside, get that running game, keep it in check and controlled, at least for the first half of this game. Get an early lead, get Daniel Jones comfortable, get him in rhythm. I don't want to see the New York Giants playing from behind. Straight up. That's what it is. We got to find a way to get some early leads this year. We got a tough schedule, and I think it starts in Minnesota. So I'm going to give y'all a score prediction tonight, and I'm going to stick to the script, and I'm going to keep 10 toes down and stand on business, y'all. No flip-flopping throughout the week with one prediction and then another prediction on Thursday and then another prediction on Sunday before we start the games when we do the parlay with the fantasy football vibes. I'm picking the New York Giants to win this game, y'all. Somebody said 42. I got the over-under hitting right at 41. I think this game is going to look a lot like the first matchup against the Tennessee Titans in week 1 of 2022. I'm taking the Giants to beat the Minnesota Vikings 21-20. I think that with the injuries to guys like T.J. Hockenson and injuries to guys up front on that offensive line in the interior with Dalton Risner, I see an opening for the Giants to be able to win this game. I was taking bets that the New York Giants weren't going to win this game throughout the whole offseason. Shout out to D. Kit one time. Nobody took them bets. Y'all should have took them bets because I really think the Giants got a chance to win this game and then be able to go to Washington in week 2 and possibly win that game as well. But like someone said earlier in the stream, it is imperative that the Giants go out here and at least win one of these games. I'm going to pick us to win both of these games. I'm kind of letting the cat out the bag here about the Washington preview for week 2. I'm taking the Giants in that game. I'm taking the Giants in this game as well in hopes that they win one of these games and we can come out entering week 3 with a 1-1 record. I see a couple of scores here in the chat. We'll highlight a few of them, and then I'll get y'all on y'all way. We got Big Dash one time in the building. He says 24-17, and if I know Big Dash like Big Dash knows Giants football, Big Dash is taking the Giants in this one to win this one 27 or 24-17. I like that score. Derek Grant says 2-0. I know he's not talking about the score. You got to be talking about the New York Giants starting off this season at 2-0, and I like that. I hope you're right on that. Tuto says that NYG is going to be 11-6 this coming season. We say forget about it. Shout out to Tuto one time. I saw SHU Carter has the Giants winning this one 21-17. Rob's score is extremely close to SHU Carter. He says 20-17 in favor of the New York Giants. I like that. And R0B also says Authentic Sunday is time for Kayvon to go out and earn his money and Burns to prove his money. LFG New York Giants. It is time, but I don't think I'm going to give them more time because, like I said, the Minnesota Vikings got 2 stout players playing the outside, and we know that Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns both like to get after the quarterback on the outside, bending those hips and using their speed to get around the edge. I think they're going to struggle in this game doing that, but I hope you're right, Rob. I really do hope you're right, and I hope that they can get after the quarterback and rattle Sam Darnold in this one. Danny Dudd says 21-10 Vikings and adds that Daniel Jones still sucks. The Beard says, y'all got to get my score tomorrow night. That's facts. That's facts. So make sure y'all pull up tomorrow, rock out with us. We're going to be doing the NFC East preview at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I got a long night today. Don't forget to check me out. I'm going to be with the Fireside Giants tonight. I want to say that stream is at, let me not butcher it. Let me get the right details for y'all real quick. And what I'll do is, for those of y'all that don't know, I got a documentary coming out this year, in-season documentary. Let me show y'all the trailer while we look for the details on tonight's stream with Fireside Giants. I think I owe it to them to at least get y'all the right time so y'all can pull up, show some love. But this is the documentary trailer here for the in-season version of the Giant Overreaction.
On 1st and 10.
6 quarterbacks went in the first 12 picks, and the Giants didn't draft one. Ain't that a bitch? Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I keep asking myself, when are we going to get back to competing? How the did we even get here?
You better watch your mouth.
Starting route to Metlife Stadium.
Well, the 2024 season is around the corner, so I'm gassing up the whip, taking my camera and hitting the road all season to bring you the most original, whatever you want to call this that we do on YouTube. We'll talk to all the fans, and we'll do it in real time. An in-season documentary on my New York Giants and the rest of you bitches in the NFC East. Yeah, you.
I'm the baddest motherfucker, play the 10, tell your bitch she can keep on looking. I'm cold motherfucker, got game for your hoe. I ain't scared if your man start tripping. I said, where my bitch, where my bitch, where my...
All right, y'all, so make sure y'all check us out during the year. I'd say about week 3, week 4, we'll be dropping our first episode of the in-season documentary of Giant Overreaction. Definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. Got some interviews lined up with some beat reporters. Got some interviews lined up with some fans. And if you want to be a part of that, definitely reach out to me. You can hit me up at authentic@allornothingstudios with an S.com. And let me know you want to be a part of the documentary and what, hopefully you're on the East Coast, because if you're not on the East Coast, I won't be able to get to you, but I'll be making some trips to New York. And if you're especially in the DMV area, definitely reach out to me. I'm still looking for somebody that'll represent the pro Daniel Jones side of the argument to have a little bit of balance within this documentary. The first episode is going to be focused on quarterbacks. Again, man, big shout out to all of y'all for pulling up, rocking out with your boy on a Giant Overreaction with Authentic and the Beard. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Beard will be making his debut in the 2024 season. I can't wait to give him a hard time and give him a bunch of shit because I think that the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders are definitely going to be battling for position in the NFC East this year. We'll see how that goes. And as far as the stream tonight, it'll be on Fireside Giants on their channel. Also, Diggy is going to be joining us during that stream as well. And it's going to be in about a good 40 minutes here. It's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So maybe go get yourself something to eat real quick, crack open a beer, maybe roll something up and meet us over there, man. But that's going to do it for my time here today. Let me get some biceps in the chat one time before we get up out of here. We went just over an hour. I think that's pretty good for these people that are going to see this one on the replay. And if you're a part of the replay gang, let me see them biceps in the chat one time when you check out this replay one time. Shout out to all of y'all for helping us build this channel, man. It's been a great off season. We've been doing big things over here, man. And I'm definitely looking forward to talking more with the new family members here, man. And I couldn't do this without y'all. So again, we'll catch y'all on the next stream, man, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see y'all over there with the Fireside Giants. Y'all know what it is, man, and let's fade this out real quick so we can make this message very, very heard one time. Keep raising that bar, y'all. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack himself. And, man, listen, if you ain't got a couple of haters out there, man, then you ain't doing something right. You know what it is, man. I'm your host, Authentic. I appreciate all of y'all pulling up, rocking out with us today. I see all the biceps. Sabrina's in the building. Asian Daboll in the building. Kareem Yee. Michael Minix is in the building. NYC1T is in the building with the 4-leaf clover one time for them. The Fighting Irish one time. Kevin the PRF representing them Commanders. Tudo. I see Radicals in the building. Jesser's in the building. SHU Carter. Derek Grant, I appreciate you pulling up, man. Hopefully we can catch you at that tailgate. Nova Nebula, man. So definitely catch us over there at the Fireside Giant stream. And I'll see y'all on the next one tomorrow. Right back at it. All football, all day tomorrow. UMD practice, right back here on Authentic in the Beard. Salute to all of y'all. G-Men 2011, I see you, fam. Y'all be good. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'll see y'all there, man. Thank God. Football is here, y'all. It's a beautiful thing. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.